Hello again friends, enjoy this short story. Title: Am I the A for choosing my grandfather to walk me down the aisle instead of my father? My name is Emily, and I'm a 23-year-old woman engaged to my wonderful partner, Michelle, who's 25. We've been together for a few years now and are planning to get married soon. There's been some family drama about who will walk me down the aisle at our wedding, and I need your perspective to know if I'm in the wrong here. I came out as a lesbian when I was 15, and unfortunately, my father didn't react well at all. He was incredibly harsh, using hateful language and making me feel like a disappointment. It was a rough time, but I'm grateful for my twin sister, Emma, who supported me through it all. She's been my rock. By the time I turned 18, I decided to leave home and cut off contact with my father completely. The negativity was too much, and I needed to find a healthier path for myself. My dad and my grandfather have never gotten along, and I could tell there were unresolved issues between them. Every time I asked about their disagreements, they would change the subject, so I was always left in the dark. A few weeks ago, I asked my grandfather if he would walk me down the aisle at my wedding. I was thrilled when he said yes because he's been like a father to me. Somehow, my father found out about this decision. Despite having no contact for 5 years, he called me out of the blue. I was shocked to hear his voice, but his tone quickly turned angry. He yelled and swore at me, accusing me of choosing a horrible human being over him. After that call, I broke down in tears, overwhelmed by emotions and doubt. I should mention that my father isn't invited to the wedding, and he knows that. I lost my mother during childbirth due to a hemorrhage, so I never got to know her. My sister and I have always been close to our mother's side of the family, seeking a connection to our mom through them. However, when I came out, even they started being passive-aggressive. They never openly showed any prejudice against me, but they made snarky comments and told homophobic jokes that made me uncomfortable. It was subtle, and I didn't see it for what it was until much later. In contrast, my father's prejudice was blatant. He used to call me terrible names like lustful devil and useless. His words were deeply hurtful, and I regret not recognizing my mother's family's subtle bias sooner. It's taken me a long time to understand the full extent of the prejudice I faced from both sides of the family. I am now left wondering if I made the right decision, and if I'm being unfair to my father by choosing my grandfather to walk me down the aisle. Am I the A? Update. First, I want to thank all of you for the overwhelming support and advice you've offered. Your kind words and insights have been incredibly helpful as I navigate this situation. I've recently uncovered some important information about why my father and grandfather don't speak to each other. I didn't mention this in my last post because I thought it was irrelevant, but now I realize it plays a significant role in the story. My father, who is 45, is an atheist, while my grandfather is a devout Christian. This difference in beliefs has been a long-standing issue between them. Moreover, I discovered that my grandfather was abusive to both my grandmother and my father when he was growing up. Learning this has been shocking but also enlightening, as it sheds light on the strained relationship between them. Here's how I found out. I unexpectedly ran into my father at a cafe the other day. It was surreal seeing him after 5 years, and I wasn't sure what to expect. But to my surprise, he hugged me tightly and started apologizing for his past homophobic and abusive behavior. He admitted he was wrong and expressed deep regret for the hurt he caused me. He also explained the fallout with my grandfather, revealing the abuse he suffered growing up. It was an emotional conversation, one I wasn't prepared for, but it gave me a lot to think about. At the end of our meeting, I told my father that I wasn't sure if I could forgive him yet. He understood and assured me he wouldn't pressure me into forgiving him. I also asked him how he found out about my grandfather walking me down the aisle instead of him. It turns out my sister, Emma, had told him. She didn't mean any harm, she just thought he should know. My father apologized for his angry reaction and admitted he was hurt by my decision. However, He said he respected my choice and even offered to help with the wedding if I needed anything. I nodded, thanked him, and left the cafe, feeling more conflicted than ever. Now, I have to confront my grandfather about the abuse allegations. If what my father said is true, I'll have to make the difficult decision to cut my grandfather out of my life, just as I have with others who've hurt or harassed me and Michelle. I'm still processing everything and trying to figure out the best way to approach this conversation with my grandfather. It's hard to know how to bring up such a sensitive subject, especially since I've attempted to discuss it in the past, only for him to avoid the topic. Final update. After much contemplation, I finally confronted my grandfather about what my father told me. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but I needed to know the truth. My grandfather admitted that he had been abusive in the past. Hearing it directly from him was devastating. I felt betrayed and heartbroken, especially because he had been a father figure to me for so long. Realizing that everything my father said was true left me with no choice but to cut my grandfather out of my life. I've always known him to be a religious man, but I never imagined he could be so cruel to my father. It's difficult to reconcile the image I had of him with the reality of who he was. With my grandfather no longer an option to walk me down the aisle, I turned to the one person who has been there for me through everything, my twin sister, Emma. She happily agreed to take on the role, and it felt right. Our bond is unbreakable, and having her by my side on such a special day was perfect. As for my relationship with my father, it's a work in progress. I don't know if we'll ever be as close as I am with Emma, but we're trying. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future and hope that, in time, we can rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty and understanding. Thank you all for your unwavering support and for following my journey. Your encouragement has been a guiding light during some of my darkest times.